Chris Paul was asked a question a few days ago, which pertained to him possibly coming off the bench. He got chippy with his response back to that reporter who asked the question. He sarcastically said, "You coaching?" And then he responded by saying, "I don't know. That situation is going to be yet. So I think that will be for us to figure out once we get going." So it's not much what he said, but if you watch the video, you can see by his facial expression and his snarky type of response, the way he said it, that he wasn't thrilled about the idea of coming off the bench. Chris Paul, to me, has always been a guy who has a huge ego. So he has a huge ego. I would say I wouldn't say positive side of the ego is, but I would say the biggest thing about his ego that what it has done for him, it allowed him to go to the NBA. I think when you're as small as Chris Paul is, he's 6 feet. Granted, for a regular person, that's a little bit above average in height, but for the NBA, that's the equivalent of being a midget. When you're that small in height and you're as skinny as Chris is, you have to have extreme arrogance, I believe, to make it to the league. It's pretty much hard not to get there without that ego. But I think the downside of it is that it's hard for you to be humble, that you can't humble yourself, and you lose awareness when you don't have any humility about your situation, which can cause your downfall. So I think that's what Chris is risking, and I think that's most likely going to happen to him as this upcoming season progresses. That he should come off the bench. It's the best option for the Warriors. I think it gives them the best chance to win. I think him starting with Steph is going to be an epic fail. I've heard the Warriors are not going to start Kevon Looney. They're going to have Draymond at the center. They're going to have Andrew Wiggins at power forward. And at small, they're going to have Clay. So this is an undersized team. I don't see how that lineup can work for long stretches. I've heard some ideas where they're not going to play Chris and Steph for the whole entire game. They'll start the game together and then they'll play with other units for different stretches of the game. And I think they'll finish the game together. But I still think this is going to backfire. I don't think it's going to work. I think ultimately, as their season progresses, it's going to come down to him making the sacrifice if he's willing to go to the bench. And I don't think he will. I think he will put up a big fight not to go to the bench. I think it will cause ultimately problems. So I think it's not going to end well, especially if him and Draymond Green clash. Granted, I don't think Draymond would be dumb enough to punch him like he did to Jordan Poole, but I think things can get ugly. To me, the biggest issue with him starting is that just the defense they're going to give up. Chris in his prime was a great defender, but him and Steph together, that's just a terrible defensive duo at their old age. Just there's so many holes. So I don't see how that can work really. Just it's going to be very interesting. I just think this season is going to be ugly for Chris. And like I said before, like he has no humility. This is a man who can never admit when he's wrong. Like, for example, I remember many years ago when I saw him play college basketball when he punched Julius Hodge in the nuts. He lied about the crowd saying that they were chanting about his dead grandfather, that they were taunting him that his grandfather was dead, and they were doing that stuff. The problem is that there were a bunch of eyewitnesses at that game, and even video was recorded back then. Granted, you didn't have phones or anything like that could record, but you had TV video cameras and other security cameras in the arena that confirmed at the time he was a liar. He lied and he just made it up. And my issue with that is even today, he still holds up that lie that just those NC State fans chanted that about his grandfather being dead. He said it recently. That's why he got emotional in that game. So this is a man whose ego won't let him see the truth or won't allow him to tell the truth, that he has to lie to himself. And I think it's going to be the ultimate lesson in humility when this guy gets embarrassed in the upcoming season. So that's all I have to say about this.